just takes a minute here to go in. Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have my buddy Sean from Ireland. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, and everyone knows. Well, not everyone, I guess, but I do. I know you go by Joey Keys on Twitter.
Yeah, it was a fun name to pick because of the association with Bon Jovi.
We know about Joey Keys. He wasn't from my neighborhood, though.
No.
Stupid joke. So before we get into the episode, I want to apologize for everyone that's listening right now. I just got over a sinus infection, so my voice is kind of congested and I might mumble here or there, but I apologize. But anyway, Sean, I always start my episodes off with how you became a Bon Jovi fan. So let's hear it.
I guess I was very, very young, and an uncle of mine had some vinyls. I remember Hysteria was one, but the cover of it looked scary. But then there was Slippery When Wet. So the first song I heard was You Give Love a Bad Name. The moment the riff kicked in, that was it. So the first video I ever saw was Living in Sin, but because back then it was different than it is now. You know, the only time you could see the videos is if you had MTV.
Okay. So what year did you discover Slippery when it came? Well, if you discovered
it was after New Jersey. It was after New Jersey, so it was late '89, I guess, when I saw it. Very young.
What's your absolute favorite song? And as a fan, what's your absolute favorite song?
Always, but if I have to nail it down to one, it would be on the acoustic one they did on the Bon Jovi weekend where they did the Crossroad ones unplugged.
That is a gem.
Yeah.
And John's vocals were absolutely out of this world in that performance.
Oh, absolutely. It was
that entire Crossroad promo in '94 was just absolutely amazing. The Richie was on top, the whole band, but John vocally out of this, every single performance you saw, John was just incredible. And I've always said it on Twitter, I've always said it on these podcasts. The peak of John's vocals was definitely in the '90s, and I think '94 was that triangular peak. You have Keep the Faith, '94, and then These Days. And it just, that whole '90s period just really was amazing. Not saying the other eras weren't, but '90s was just amazing. And you look at every single Always performance from '94, like the one in Niagara Falls. Oh my gosh!
Oh yeah, man, that was so
man. You want to, look at '95 from Wembley. It's just amazing. So, yeah, good choice though. So anyway, we are going to talk about. I always get excited about talking about Lost Highway because it is essentially my favorite album, and so I always will never miss the opportunity of talking about Lost Highway. So we'll talk about as you worded it, the Gamblins of the band going into Lost Highway era. And but I want to go back a second because I said Lost Highway album is my favorite, and a lot of people will say, well, you said Crush was your favorite album. Crush is my favorite album as far as it started it all for me as an 8-year-old kid in 2000. But as a fan, Lost Highway is my favorite. Then Crush would be my ultimate favorite too. But Lost Highway just in general was just a magnificent album. You look at it lyrically from a songwriter's perspective, it's amazing. I guess we'll get into it. I don't want to dig too deep here, I guess. But overall of the album, what did you think of it?
Shockingly brilliant. I was very worried when I was hearing this. They were going country, and I was thinking, really? And I was kind of saying, if they go too country, they could lose a large portion of the fan base. But when you hear the album and the subject matter and everything that's on it, you just go, wow, they really took what they do great, what country does great, bang.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
My memory was, so I was a fan for 7 years at this time. So, obviously the news, but he said in the interview, and I think it was in January, might have even been end of 2006, right? It was right after the Have a Nice Day tour ended, because Who Says You Can't Go Home? Oh, so, the whole idea, for most people that are watching this podcast know the story, but just in case someone doesn't, Who Says You Can't Go Home, featuring Jennifer Nettles, was released on the 2005 album Have a Nice Day. And that just blew up on the radio. And it was like a huge
In
success.
the USA, yeah.
Yep. And that paved ways for John wanting to do a Nashville. And so if you notice, John has never said it was a country album. It was a Nashville country influenced album. It was essentially, if you listen to it, it is a rock album with a twist of country. But so my memory of it was at the end of the Have a Nice Day tour, which I think it ended in November, December of '06. Shortly after that, John said that they were already going back into the studio to record a country influenced album. And I remember reading in headlines. Let me think. Let me think here. I was 14, 15 years old when this news came out. So I remember going to school and everybody's like, oh, your favorite band's going country. And I live in an area where it's 80% country people, which is fine, And so but me, I was like, I'm a rock and roller and blah, blah, blah. They're like, your favorite band's going country. And I was like, no, they're not going country. But at that time, you really didn't have much to go on other than John saying it was a Nashville country album. So as a fan, I was actually kind of worried too. I was like, oh my gosh, because I'm not a big country fan. I like a little country, but I'm not that big of a country fan. And I was like, oh my gosh, am I not going to like this album? And I was like kind of worried about it for January and February of '07. And I remember in March, they were premiering their first single, You Want to Make a Memory. They were performing it live. The premiere of the actual single did not come out until May, studio recorded version. But the live performance of it, they did. It was some kind of not American Idol. That was later. That was in May.
Yeah, with You Want to Make a Memory, yeah.
Yeah, but in March they performed it on an award show. And I have it recorded, but I remember at the end of it, John says, "Hang in there, Adam," which was Richie's dad. He was pretty much passing at the time, unfortunately. But I can't remember the awards. But anyway, I remember watching it in March. And for those that know, "You Want to Make a Memory" is my absolute ultimate favorite Bon Jovi song. I absolutely just love it.
Fan, man.
And I remember it was like 7:30 at night. I was watching TV. I'm ready to record it on my VHS tape, before DVR really set ways for things. And I remember, oh my gosh, please, please, please let me like this. Please let me like this song, because I don't not want to support the next album, because I really, and it came on, I remember that slow boom, 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 boom. And by the end of it, I was just like, wow. I probably replayed it on my VHS tape so many times every day. And I was like, this is my absolute favorite song. And so there, it kind of gave me some leeway. I was like, I think I'm going to really enjoy this next album. And then more promo, more interviews were coming in March, April. And then I think in May, they showed a snippet on the band's website for Whole Lot of Leaving, I think it was. Do you remember? They released some kind of snippet in May, because the album didn't come out until June of 2007. But I think with May, there was so much promo. They were on American Idol. They were on award shows.
And it was almost like they were on more things than they ever were.
It was LeAnn Rimes, because they were teasing about collaborating with a country artist. So it was Big and Rich, and it was LeAnn Rimes. I think they played a LeAnn Rimes snippet on the band's website. And then it was Whole Lot of Leaving at the end of May. It was like a 30-second clip or something. Might have even been on the Backstage fan club where they had that. I remember hearing that, and that gave me some hope too. But but going into when the album actually released, I remember going to buy that album, and I was just as I was with every, I was thinking this morning. We live in a pre-order day now, where you pre-order something months in advance, and it doesn't even come on the first day of release. So you're still having to go to the store to buy it if you're a diehard fan. I should say if you're a diehard. As far as Bon Jovi goes, we have to have that album on the first day. But I remember back in the day, pre-order wasn't around then, and so I remember waking my dad up at like 7 in the morning because Kmart opened at 8 o'clock. And I said, Dad, you got to get your shot. I got to get that because I'm only 1450. I can't drive yet. And we live like 10 miles from the store. So I remember we got there right at 8 o'clock, ready for the doors to open, got the album. My dad hopped back on, we rode his motorcycle. And I'm not a big fan of motorcycles. My dad actually passed on a motorcycle, but
I'm sorry.
And so I never liked it. But I was like, you know what? To get this album, I'll suffer the con. I'll just, I hated motorcycles. I hated being on them. But I was like, you know what? I'll risk it. And or not risk it, but just bite my tongue, I guess, because it was only 10 miles. And got home. I had my CD player ready to go. I actually had it open, plugged in. All I had to do was put it in. And I remember putting it in. And then obviously Lost Highway was the first track that came on. And I was like, I dig this. And I just, the rest is, essentially the whole album, I absolutely loved. Now, I know I'm talking, and I'll give you a second here. A Whole Lot of Leaving was the only one that I could not get into. Still to this day, I cannot get into Whole Lot of Leaving. I don't get the hype with it. It's even one of John's favorites. But anyway, what was your reaction to it when you first got the album?
Very shockingly happy. I was when you hear obviously the first single and you're going, man, there's no country sound from this. But then when you put the album on, you get it. But what really did it for me was when it was in Europe, we were very lucky up until Crush to always get the 14 tracks. It was from Crush onwards that you had to buy other versions as well. So that was one record that I remember going.
Well, Keep the Faith in These Days was the same way though. International. So here in the States, the 12 tracks. Here in the States, we got 12 tracks on Faith in These Days, but you guys, or international editions got, like on Keep the Faith, you got Save a Prayer. These Days got, All I Want Is Everything and Bitter Wine.
But that was the first. I remember the Japanese track and ordering 2 of the CDs, one to open, one to keep sealed. But man, oh man, was Walk Like a Man something special.
Yeah, and that song deserved to be on the album. I would have replaced it with a Whole Lot of Leaving if it came down to that. But Walk Like a Man was like the epitome of where they were going, I think. As far as and it's funny too because if you look at the 2 outtakes that essentially didn't make it on international editions, Put the Boy Back in Cowboy, or was it Put the Cowboy Back in the Boy, or something like that?
On the singles, Put the Boy Back in Cowboy was on it, but on the different editions for Target, I think you would know more about the Target one than me. The Target had Lonely and Cowboy, but the Japanese ones had Lonely and Lost Highway.
Yeah. So I always thought that the 3 outtakes that essentially did make it on some singles and some international editions or Target, Walmart, those were the most country sounding songs, other than Whole Lot of Leaving. Whole Lot of Leaving and then the 3 were really the heaviest country sounding songs. Other songs were more of a rock song, but with some country twist to it. And then, fun fact too, real quick, you mentioned Lonely. That almost made the album too, but John has said a few times that they had a Whole Lot of Leaving and then they had a Whole Lot of Lonely. And John didn't want to be too repetitive, so he had to really make a hard decision, say which one is probably better for the album, which obviously the rest is history. Leaving went on the album and Lonely didn't. But not only is great. There's a live performance of it, I think from '09, Starland Ballroom. Love it.
Oh, it's a super song.
Yeah,
It's like so many times with the band, a lot of time the bonus tracks are as good, if not better, than the other ones.
I know. Bounce is the perfect example of that.
Mm.
They could have made a double album with all those But thankfully we got that Target edition. We got some more on the box set, and some stuff was on singles too from the band. Anyway, back to the Lost Highway era. What's your absolute favorite track on the album?
Oh, without a doubt, Make a Memory, but very close. Walk Like a Man's behind it.
Yeah,
But
Walk Like a Man.
but the video for Memory is exceptional as well.
All right, so let's get on the memory boat here because as much as I love talking about the album, I love talking about Memory more because it's my ultimate favorite song. The orchestration, the composition of that song is just so beautifully written. And excuse my nose is just itchy. I'm so sorry. I know
Okay.
that's rude of me. It's rude of me to do that, but the way that Memory was written instrumentally is just absolutely beautiful because the ending is so totally different. The whole. Let's start from the beginning. You have it. It's so slow. The boom, 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 boom. Hello again, it's you and me. And John has talked about in interviews back then how he was just really just laying there with a guitar and just messing around. And all of a sudden, he kind of found that you and I both play guitar, so we know where it was on the neck. But he started, and then all of a sudden, that the lyrics started to come to me. Hello again, it's you and me. Kind of always like it used to be, and then it starts just to pick up, and then obviously it gets into the end where it's a different orchestration. Usually the song ends at the end of the chorus, but it goes into this whole instrumental thing, and then Richie and is singing yeah, and it's beautiful, and the way that the video complemented the song or the song complemented the video, because you could look at that video in two different ways. He's a ghost looking back um, at memories. But John actually, there was an interview I read recently that I forgot about. That was back from '07. She's actually the ghost.
Yeah.
And I always thought he was because the way he kind of disappears at the end. But my second viewpoint of it was that he was looking back at memories too. But like I said, John said in the interview, she's actually the ghost looking back. And so that was like, okay, I never saw that viewpoint there. But yeah, what do you think of the video?
It was it was something. Sometimes you could look at a video and they have more of the lead singer than they do the rest of the band, but this was the one time as well where I'd say it suited the story so much
I
that
know.
happened the rest of the guys just in a small bit, but enough
Yes.
that it didn't upset the rest of the story to the video because it was so important to get it right. And it
I
did.
completely I completely agree with you because a lot of people will be like, well, why wasn't the rest of the band in the video? Well, that kind of takes away from the story. They're in the video too much, and it's just like, I don't say too much, but like they're taken away from the story. And like the whole point of that story was John and quote unquote his wife in the video, looking back in time, looking back at memories, or reflecting essentially. They could have done something where the whole band was like performing on a stage, and so you'd have 1 second of the video, 1 second of the band performing the song. And I think that would have been too cheeky for the video. I think it needed to be what it was, focused
Yeah.
on John and her. And like you said too, they did show special spots of the band, like when they were in the restaurant, the bar, and stuff like that. So, and I remember watching.
And sorry for interrupting you. It was almost like a movie, like the story to a movie. And the video was just so good because it was perfect to the story. While some of the other music videos, not just the Bon Jovi, but other ones, would not be exactly about the song. But
Yeah.
that was just perfect.
I don't know if it was the Bon Jovi fan in me that was so pissed off when Video of the Year came out. They weren't even nominated.
Yeah.
That video. I was like, you gotta be effing kidding me. Because I don't pay attention to awards. I don't pay attention to charts, nothing like that. But the fact that You Want to Make a Memory was true, and I don't say this just because I'm a Bon Jovi fan. It was truly the best video of that year, you know, and it was kind of overlooked and not even nominated. But I don't know if you have VH1's Big Top 20 Countdown back then in your country, in Ireland.
Maybe so, but it wasn't something I paid much attention to at that time when I was younger. Yeah, but because when I was younger, there was nothing else. It was VH1, MTV, that was it. But as time went on, I didn't look at it as much.
Okay, so we had VH1 here, MTV, but VH1 had a show in the mornings called Big Top 20 Countdown, where they would have, you could go on and vote every day, and you could vote which song deserves to be number one, which one to number two, and then they would kind of do a formula to calculate, you know, which video is the best. And so every day, you know, I remember in May and June, Bon Jovi's You Want to Make a Memory would go to 20, and then it would go up to 18, 16, 17, 13, back down to 14. But it would eventually climb up, and I think it hit number one at the week of release. But I was really happy when it hit number one. And so that, you know, that's one of my memories of the song and the video. But I was like, I remember it took a lot of the Bon Jovi fans to vote for that, because this is back in MySpace days. So I'm like, you know, posting on my MySpace, vote for Bon Jovi, and I had like maybe like 10 friends on MySpace, and no one probably voted. But yeah.
But look, sure, the album sales did great, the tour did great, it was spectacular, and sure, that was the important thing, you know.
Yeah, the album went number one, I think, worldwide, and the tour did too. Didn't the tour win number one tour?
Yeah, and Circle as well, didn't it?
Yeah, the Circle definitely did, but Lost Highway did go number one, because I remember Lost Highway, Have a Nice Day didn't, but I know Lost Highway, The Circle were both number one tours. So yeah, so it was a very successful album. And I went to, so the majority of the album was recorded in Nashville at Blackbird Studios, I believe it was called. We went to Nashville 2-3 years ago, and we actually stopped at Blackbird Studios, and I'm not kidding you, it is like a really small place. Like, you wouldn't believe like a big band like Bon Jovi would record here. It's a beautiful studio, but it's just it's so small. And but that was kind of cool to see, you know, where for me, you know, where your favorite album was recorded, you know. So what do you think of the other singles, you know, like Lost Highway and
I loved the one with Leanne Rimes. That was a super song, and the solo was so simple again, but so effective.
Yeah.
You know, Till We Ain't Strangers Anymore. It was, again, like You Want to Make a Memory. Everything was so simple, but it worked perfectly.
Yeah. You know, I remember when the video was put out. I think it actually released on CMT first before it went on MTV or VH1. But anyway, I remember a lot of people on the fan club forum was talking about the music video. They're like, oh my gosh, John is so hot. John is so hot. And I was like, have you seen Leanne Rimes in that nightgown? Yeah. And but really, she really her and John really complimented each other vocally, and I thought that was a really good duet. But surprisingly, I feel like it's kind of flipped. Back in 07, back then Big and Rich was really, really popular back in 07, so I can see why. But back then, the Big and Rich duet was a lot bigger than Leanne Rimes duet. But now you kind of talk to other Bon Jovi fans, and they're like, no, I like Till We Ain't Strangers Anymore more than We Got It Going On. A lot of people hate We Got It Going On now, and I don't understand why.
It's great. It's just
it's funny how that's flipped.
I don't know. It's a great riff. and
Yeah.
solo was brilliant as well.
On which one?
We Got It Going On.
Yeah, it's a great opener too. I got to see John open up with it on the cruise in 2019, and I would have never imagined that as a song or a show opener. I was like, wow. And so I would love to see the band open up with that. It was a shame that they didn't even play it on the last tour last year, back in April.
Oh yeah, it's a like the other, and there are so many great releases that went with Lost Highways. And just going back to You Want to Make a Memory, was it the French CD has the almost like a greeting card inlay where it has the lyrics on it.
Yep, I
Yeah,
love.
French one. Yeah, it's a lovely one. And the see and how many special DVDs etc. were released for that album. You know, there was unplugged ones, there was the CMT ones. It was just
Yeah, you know,
brilliant.
Bon Jovi was everywhere. It was on TV. I want to talk about the Lost Highway, the concert, because that was released the same day that the album was, I believe. And that was kind of cool because before that, we never got to see an album performed in its entirety like that.
Yeah,
And,
pretty sure.
I remember they filmed that in Chicago. And the day before the concert, they recorded the music video for Lost Highway.
Oh, cool.
So they kind of did one day and then one the next. But I remember um, watching that listening to the album and then watching the concert right after and kind of still learning the lyrics. But like I remember I'd follow along the lyrics in the booklet, but watching the concert was kind of amazing to kind of see this, listen to the songs first, then watching it performed, and just kind of like any other day, they added on that outro, which was incredible.
Oh,
Between Lorenza and
yeah.
David and Richie and stuff like that, and yeah, that was a great concert.
And the Seat Next to You as well is a really
Yeah.
good one. It's a
Yep.
really
And that was. I'll let you. Were you gonna say something else to that first?
again with a small duet in it, but it was just something special. And again, the subject matter of the whole album, if you're feeling down, it picks you up, and if you're up, it makes you go up even more, you know.
Well, that was what a lot of that album was Richie pouring his heart out, whether it was John writing about Richie or Richie writing about himself. A lot of that album was about what Richie was going through with losing his dad, the breakup or the divorce with Heather Locklear, his fling with Denise, just a bunch of turmoil, as well as what was going on in John's life and the band's, stuff like that.
Everyone's life. It
Yeah,
just
yeah,
do.
yeah. Like John said in an interview, I think it was on The View. He said that, or on the Today Show back in '07. He said a lot of that album was Richie being who he was and that character he was kind of trying to take off, throwing it off a cliff, and John took a gun and shot it in the back of the head. And that's what the album was essentially about, was Richie unloading all of his problems. So yeah, like you said, it's a great pick me up album. It's a good, you can relate to it in every single way, whether it's you're just down on your luck, breakups, or even just having fun with your life, like a song like Lost Highway, where you love just on a summer road trip, putting the window down, putting Lost Highway on, and driving. That in summertime.
Exactly. I was going to say letting it go to the second track with this again simple dun 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 dun, dun, really
Yeah, but
works.
isn't summertime like really underrated?
Mm.
It is extremely underrated. It's probably like one of the. I'd probably put in my top 3 tracks of Lost Highway. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially
yeah,
like.
really good, really good. It's just the whole record, all the releases, the special editions, and everything. It's almost like you could say to yourself, man, you could imagine a music video for Summertime, or you could imagine a music video for Lonely, You Walk Like a Man, especially.
Yeah.
Super duper stuff. Really.
I want to jump back to one thing too, because we're talking about, what these songs meant. And I think for me to kind of just touch base with why this album means so much to me is because, like I said, I was 14 going on 15. So obviously I'm going through such a change in my life where I'm going from a kid to a teenager and a teenager to a young man essentially. And at that time I was going through, relationships. I was starting to kind of date girls and kind of go through breakups and kind of learning about like how do you deal with this kind of stuff. And like a lot of those songs really helped me with that. And then, a year later after the release of the album, my dad died. And so Seat Next to You was something that I really could relate to because me personally, I find Seat Next to You to be one of those things about, heaven or whatever happens in the afterlife, waiting for someone when you pass. So that song really helped me, and so a lot of memories were associated with that album too. The tour, I really held on to that album 07, 08, and that was pretty much the soundtrack of my life those 2 years. And I think I really clinged on to those
No,
albums.
I agree. It's just every song on it and has something to hold and grasp, whether it be Walk Like a Man, You Want to Make a Memory, anything at all.
Yeah. And so, what song do you think that you connected to the most on that album, lyrically? Not as a favorite, but lyrically. Which one do you think really kind of grasped you? Which one?
You Want to Make a Memory.
Okay. And may I ask in what kind of sense it kind of you connect?
In a romantic way to a girl. It was just fit the time, and it was just she was gone, and when the record came out, and it was just like everything I absorbed everything that the record could give, and it was very much needed at the time.
Absolutely. Well, anything else you want to say about Lost Highway?
Very underrated, I think. But I understand why. To if you were to someone who's never heard Bon Jovi and you gave them These Days and Keep the Faith, New Jersey, Crush, I'm not sure that Lost Highway would be one of the ones where they would put it in the top three. But if someone doesn't like it, that's cool. But I can understand both points of view. There's not big solos, there's not big endings, but it was a change, and I'm very glad that they did that record.
Yeah. Yeah, you bring up These Days, which kind of makes me think too. A lot of people will, and I completely agree. These Days is probably their best albums lyrically. But you also look at Lost Highway too, and I would personally put that album up to These Days because you look at a lot of those lyrics and songwriting, it's pretty good, you know. So I do think Lost Highway was very
The
underrated.
music video for Lie to Me, again, like with Memory, it was so suited to the song almost, and there was things like that. So was Callways as suited to the song? Maybe not. It was still a great video, so but like that CMT DVD release was brilliant. It was region one only, but I still got it, and I had the all regions player, and then with the which special edition had the stripped versions of the songs. Then it was the Australian version. Yeah, that was super as well. There was so many great editions.
Which, if I remember correctly, I think.
And the CMP had the cool edition. and I still have it in the seal. Had the DVD and the album in the double pack. That was a cool
Yeah.
thing.
Yep. Yeah, and they did a Walmart sound check on the CMT, I think. And I loved Memory on there. I think what other songs I have it over here, but what other songs did they do on that? I'm trying to remember.
It wasn't Till We Ain't Strangers because
Yeah.
Leanne came for the Unplugged show.
Yeah. Yeah. They did a few, but yeah. So well, anyway, it was great chatting to you about Lost Highway. And before we conclude, I know you want to talk a little bit about your music. And so plug away, buddy.
So it was just since I was a kid, like you would see interviews with John talking about how he started doing his own writing and took it off from there. I was the same. When I started my playing instruments, I could do everything that Richie did or whoever, but I didn't get great satisfaction out of it. And it was just like learning. It was almost like a chore. But once I started my own writing, it got there. But what happened was, time went on, and I kept saying I must put it out, must put it out. And my grandmother said to me, "Would you make me two promises?" I said, "What's the promises, Granny?" And she said, "Will you cut your hair?" I said, "No." "What's the next promise?" And she said, "Well, would you release your music?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, okay." Then I never saw her again because she passed. And it was almost like not to worry, and thank you. It was almost like a sign to do it. So once COVID was over, I released that one at Christmas, and then I'm going to start releasing my own ones then from February onwards. But it's just like with the key, I have two or three keys I can sing in. They're all going to be love songs with the artist name Beautiful Echo.
Okay. And if I remember correctly, you sent me one. And
Yeah.
what was the one that you sent me that I absolutely loved? What was that? What was the name of it?
It was the one I released at Christmas called Santa Don't Forget About Me, and that
Yeah,
was the one.
I enjoyed it. So I'll vouch for you. It's good and it's worth taking the time to listen to.
Thank you very much. It's it was I knew that to go with first the Christmas one and then do everything else after, but they'll all be love songs. So years of listening to Bon Jovi and Whitesnake and Roxette and that type of thing. It's kind of, if you put them all together, there's going to be different styles, but all love songs. That's original love songs, what they're going to be.
So where can people go to check the stuff out?
They'll start coming out in February. They'll be on all streaming sites worldwide under the artist name Beautiful Echo.
Okay. Do you want to plug your social media so people can follow you and kind of stay up to date with that? It's up to you. You don't have to.
No, that's okay. I don't use it that much, but I certainly will when the first song comes out next month. It's Beautiful Echo 01.
Okay. What about your other account that you and we talk on Twitter? Do you want to promote that one?
Yeah, that's fine. It's I have to look at the name here. So that's my two Twitter accounts. One is the Sean or the Joey Keys one, but wait till I open it up here. Sorry.
That's all right, buddy.
So we open it up, and
it's like our phone numbers. We don't know our usernames. Yeah. I know my username. Mine's simple, but
it's Joey Keys 05 is my main one, and the other one then is Beautiful Echo 01.
Perfect. Well, I'm looking forward to listening to the new stuff. I like that one you put out last month, so I'm looking forward to the other stuff coming out. So
thank you very much.
All right, buddy. Thank you again so much for coming on. And I was just so excited when you said you wanted to talk about Lost Highway. I was like, yeah, I'll talk about Lost Highway. And so anyway, thank you again, buddy, for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your time. Good luck, Jerry. See you.